Thanks for tuning in today to learn more about recognizing where you are in your transition and how to find ways to manage that transition. My name is Trisha Grace, and I'm part of the Alumni Relations team that works with both employers and graduates to support you as you develop your career after graduation. Connect with me on LinkedIn or by email tgrace@georgebrown.ca. If you have any questions or comments, I'd be happy to hear from you. The Alumni Relations Office the Alumni Relations Office exists for the George Brown College alumni community, which is at about 250,000 right now and ever increasing. It's where you connect to update your contact information if you have a new email account, you've moved, you've got a job, or you've got a new job, let us know. The Alumni Relations Office updates everything in our database so we can stay in touch with you and ensure you learn about important activities and events at the college and around the GTA, where you can also access exclusive alumni benefits that include special rates on home and car insurance, life and health insurance, travel insurance, discounts on entertainment and attractions, and lots more. Also, consider volunteering at the college as a mentor, guest speaker at an event or in the classroom, or see yourself featured in one of our George Brown College marketing materials through testimonials, grad success stories, or videos. So check out our website, georgebrown.ca/alumni, or just email us at alumni@georgebrown.ca. And to follow us on social media, just enter the hashtag GBC alumni, and you can follow us on any social media platform. All right, so the objectives of today's webinar are to explore the differences between change and transition, define and understand the three phases of transition, identify where you are in the career transition process, and explore ways to move forward to ensure a smooth transition. So although today I'll be talking about transition as it pertains to a career transition, transition happens in many areas of our lives as we go through the years. As a new graduate, you go through the transition of moving from being a student into the world of work as an employee. When you find a partner, you transition into a life shared. When you have a child, you transition into parenthood. So there's lots of transition that happens in our lives. Some transitions are welcome and some others are not. So, we transition during times of loss of a loved one, loss of a job, a breakup, a pandemic. These are all moments of transition for us. So the agenda is we're going to cover the difference between change and transition. I'll talk in depth about that. And then we're going to look at the three phases of transition. And then the idea of letting go in the ending phase, and then moving forward through transition to a more positive place. So here's a quote for you. It isn't the changes that do you in, it's the transitions. Change is situational. Transition is the psychological process people go through to come to terms with the new situation. Change is external. Transition is internal. So this is a quote by William Bridges, and he was an author and transition management leader advising corporations on how to help their employers manage change. He wrote a groundbreaking book that has been central to discussions around transition called Transitions, Making Sense of Life's Changes. And I'll be referring throughout the webinar to some of the things he mentions in the book. I highly advise you to get it. It's a fantastic book. Again, it is Transitions, Making Sense of Life's Changes. Okay, so let's look at the difference between change and transition. When we are talking about change, we're usually talking about some external situation. It's typically a one-time thing that happens. It's an occurrence. The change, it just simply happens. However, what causes a need for change management is people's internal reactions to the change. Our emotional and psychological transition is internal, and that takes time. There are phases that we go through when we transition, and we'll take a look at those in a moment more closely. But when one phase ends, then another begins. So there is a process. So a change so a change concludes with a beginning, and transition begins with an ending. And if that sounds confusing, it will make more sense as we go forward. The strategies for each phase focuses on how to move people from one psychological state to another, because unless transition occurs, the change that happened will not take root. So what is the transition process? Well, as humans, we get accustomed to doing things a certain way. We develop habits, we establish familiar routines, whether that's a time we get up in the morning, a time we go to bed at night, the people we may see regularly and spend time with, the time we eat throughout the day. We all have different setups or routines that we've established. When that gets thrown out of whack for either good reasons or bad ones, situations we either can control or we can't control, we can feel really anxious, and we need time to adjust. So altering the perspective of what we know can be difficult to manage. So, transition is moving through a change. It's experiencing ups and downs, progressing from where you are to where you want to be. So there's three phases of transition. And we're going to look at what is experienced in each phase. So you've got the ending phase, you've got the neutral zone, and you've got the new beginning. So endings is a time where you say goodbye, you're letting go of something, you're losing something. And that can be like a sense of identity, for example. The neutral zone is a place where you need to spend time. It's not particularly a comfortable zone. We're going to get into that, but it's an exploration phase. It's also called the fertile void. It's where you begin to explore the comfort of a new situation. So you're saying goodbye to something, but you're starting to explore the idea of a new situation. And new beginnings, the third phase, is the moving forward stage. It relies on regular and effective communication, and you start to see possibility in a new situation. So let's look at these phases more closely. So the endings. Transition begins by letting go of something. It starts with an ending. Sometimes it's hard to actually define what you're losing. It could be the loss of something, the loss of something could feel like something that's been long embedded, like roots are being pulled up. It can be the loss of a strong attachment to what something represents that is the greater loss. For example, a loss of identity or how you defined yourself to others. I'm a teacher. I'm a manager. I'm a doctor. I'm a student. I'm a wife or husband. I'm an employee. I'm a healthy person. I'm a young person. I'm a parent. These feelings of loss might happen when you lose your job, and so you no longer identify as a manager. When you graduate from college and you no longer identify as a student. When you start a family, when you get sick, when you go through a divorce, when you leave home for the very first time, when you settle in a new country, in a new culture, when you retire. So this ending stage requires a separation from the familiar, a detachment from the way it was, a moving away from an identity that no longer exists, and seeing yourself no longer as that in that old identity or as that old self. There is a shift that happens where you start to look at things differently. Nothing actually looks the same in an ending. So many emotions arise at the ending stage, such as when a change happens that you weren't expecting. So some of those emotions could be uncertainty, can be denial, shock, anger, confusion, shame, fear, blame, sadness, and grief. It's natural and it's normal to feel a whole gamut of emotions, and it's important to process the loss. So some ways to deal with the ending phase is to expect and openly accept signs of emotion. Think and speak of the past in a respectful way. Appreciate the benefits of change and thinking about what you'll gain from the change, the positive aspects. Seek out a support network that will help you make sense of the transition. If you've had a chance to prepare for change, then turn to the plan you've created to see you through the transition. Think about how you've handled change in your life previously, because it's probably not the first time that you've experienced change. How did you manage and navigate the last time? Think of a role model who navigated change in a really positive or creative way. These tips may make an ending easier to get through. Even when a change happens that you instigated or chose, there are still emotions that arise, like uncertainty of what to expect. There's excitement, there's joy, but there's also fear, there's intimidation, there's also grief of letting go of old ways or that which is familiar. So the neutral zone, it's the in-between time when the old is gone, but the new isn't in place yet. The new is yet to be determined. So you're realigning and repatterning. This is where that happens. This is the very core of the transition process. The time between the old reality and sense of identity and the new one. It really is the foundation of the beginnings that you're looking forward to. The neutral zone is a time of quiet reflection. It prepares you well for new beginnings. So it really is that in-between stage. You're neither one thing nor another. You've kind of shed your identity, and maybe you haven't started to identify with any new self yet. It's the time to contemplate what next. I meet a lot of grads who are truly grieving the loss of identifying as a student and have not had a job offer yet. So they have not begun to identify with a new beginning yet. And it's a really tough time, but a really reflective time to sit back and think, who you are and what you want as you go forward. So once you've gone through the ending process in its varied stages, the neutral zone can be a time of great creativity where many possibilities present themselves. You begin to imagine a new reality and sense of identity. By spending quality time in the neutral zone, you enter a new beginning that you have truly prepared for. So really give in to this stage and don't rush it. Think about it. Think about life. Think about what really matters to you. So relish in that opportunity. Think about what you want and where you want to take yourself. It could be a time of emptiness and confusion for some, but sit with those emotions. Surrender to those emotions. Don't rush through this stage. It's a time to rebuild your foundation to allow for an easier transition to new beginnings. And it's necessary. It's a necessary place to be before you start anew. And eventually you do start anew. So, oops. So when you're starting anew, oh my gosh, where is it? Here we go. Sorry. New understanding. So, new beginnings can arrive. They arrive quietly sometimes, and then you suddenly realize that you've emerged. You feel this different sense of things, a new understanding of new values, new attitudes, new roles you're considering. Beginnings are marked by a release of energy in a new direction. They are an expression of a fresh identity. So establishing yourself in new roles with an understanding of your purpose, the part you're going to play, and how to contribute and participate most effectively. So you begin to form an idea or an image of the future. You feel hopeful and energized typically when you're entering into the new beginning stage. You begin to see that you have experienced a process and that you're ready for the next step in your life journey. So there are all kinds of positive emotions that are felt at the new beginning stage, like confidence and energy and commitment and a sense of possibility, growth. Visualizing a new way of doing things and identifying with something new is a really, really important stage. So think about where you are in your transition and how you can move forward. In transition, we sometimes get stuck in the ending phase. And remember, there's the ending, the neutral zone, and the new beginning. But a lot of people can sometimes get stuck in that ending phase. So let's take a closer look at your experience with endings, because we all have them. So quietly reflect on areas in your life where you can identify an ending, especially those more recent in your life and career. So jot down a few things that you have to let go of or that you have had to let go of. You can do that now, pause the presentation, or you can do it later on, whatever you like, but reflect and think about what you have to let go. Get some language around this and get in touch with your feelings around it. So for example, some of the things that you might have had to let go of, depending on where you're at. So if you're watching this and you've lost a job, or you're watching this and you haven't got a job yet, you're just coming out of being a student and now you're a graduate. These are all transitions, and you're affected by different things depending on what stage you're at. So you might have had to give up a regular income if you lost a job. You may have had to give up a group of colleagues and friends. And that could be if you lost a job, or you moved to a new country, or you have left school, you graduated, and you're used to having to see the same friends every day, a regular place to go every morning. So again, if you're used to coming to school and having some structure and coming in every day to school, or going to a job every day, you might have had to give that up. A way to use your talents. So if you change jobs, you may have had certain skills that you used in your old jobs and talent that now you have to move into another area and use new talents. You've got to give up those old talents. You've had to give up a way to structure your time, plans that you had for the future, a way to be appreciated, your identity. These are some of the things that you might have had or will have to give up. So why letting go is so important. Again, as I said, people tend to get stuck in the ending stage, but letting go is the only way to move into the neutral zone and eventually find yourself in new beginnings. So if we're dragging our baggage around with us, employers, recruiters, people in your network can sense that you're burdened. Having a victim mentality just holds us back from reaching our full potential. So refusing to let go prevents us from seeing new possibilities. So moving beyond ending. So earlier I mentioned a few ways of thinking that can help you move forward, but here are some more that might be helpful as well. So identify your feelings and talk to others you trust. It's very important to really understand what you're going through. What are those feelings? And normalize the feelings and accept them. Don't judge them, just let them happen. But talk to others as well that you trust. That could be a family member, that could be someone else that's going through the same thing. It can be finding, if you're job searching and you're struggling, and you're sort of transitioning from student to employee and it's been a really tough one, a job search club. Find a job search club, start your own. You can meet with a therapist if you're really having a lot of difficulty and you feel that you want to talk to someone who's not in your personal circle, then speak with a therapist. Also, meet with a career coach. If it's around getting work and you're really struggling, or you left a job, or you were released from a job, meet with a career coach to help you get on track. Express your thoughts and feelings through journaling. So I don't know if you've ever tried that, but that's writing down your thoughts, keeping a journal of how you're feeling, some of your activities you're involved in, just sort of tracking the journey that you're on. It really is quite helpful for those who are trying to cope and navigate through emotionally tense times. Ask yourself, what do I gain by hanging on to this? So that letting go is really important. So hanging on to certain thoughts that are negative or emotions that are negative, you do eventually want to move on from that. So what can you do to move through the neutral zone? How can you make a more real or impactful neutral zone experience? Um, find a regular time and place to be alone and reflect. All right. So it's okay to be here. A lot of people feel like, well, I should be working or I should be doing something. And they quickly try to get busy with something. But I'm going to suggest more comes out of the time you put aside to reflect and think about where you're going to go next. Keep a log or a journal of your neutral zone experiences. So what are you feeling? What are some of the thoughts that emerge? What's your mood from day to day? What are some of the dreams and aspirations that you have, you know, uh, thought about, and write those down. Look beyond the limiting thoughts and discover what you really want. So don't think small. If you're in transition, this is a chance sometimes to go even bigger. So don't think small, think big. So moving forward, new beginnings. So new beginnings can be mysterious and sometimes accidental. So you suddenly realize you're thinking in a more positive way. You're thinking about the future in a more positive way. Listen for the subtle signals, an impression, an idea, or an image that enters your mind, someone's comment that sticks with you. You start to have a vision of the future. Consider an inventory of new beginnings in your life. Say to yourself, a new chapter in my life opened up when, so thinking about other times in your life where you've had to start over, you've had a new beginning. Start a statement, a new chapter in my life opened up when, and then reflect on your answer to better understand where some of your new beginnings have come from. Life is full of transitional cycles, and so you must have experienced some in the past. Look to those. How did you cope before? So what you need during career transition specifically is structure, information, and support. So let's take a look at that, and an example of what you can do to move forward in your career transition. So the first thing we're going to talk about is creating a structure. So, having a plan of action is such an important piece when you are starting to job search, and whether it's your first job or a new job, get a job search plan in place. Set some short-term and long-term goals. So what do you want to achieve now or in the next little while? And what about the longer vision for yourself? And how are you going to get there? What are some of the things you can do in the short term that will eventually get you to that long-term goal? Plan activities for each day or each week to stay busy, to start moving towards some of those goals you set. Make time for self-care. So it's not all, I know that people say you're looking for a job as a full-time job. True, to a certain extent, but you can't do it for 8 hours a day. So you need to also take care of yourself, whether that's self-care of go and get a haircut if we still can, relaxing in a bath, seeing friends, going out and eating well, putting your feet up and playing a video game. That's all very important as part of the job search as well, to be kind to yourself. And find an accountability partner. So someone who you can reach out to and let them know what you're doing, so they can support you, and it's someone that you can speak to about your progress. That again can be a job search club. It can be a past classmate. It could be a family member, whoever, a job coach, that kind of thing. So don't forget that obtaining information is going to be a really important part of moving forward. So just simple things. Is your resume in a current format? How do you prepare for an interview? Are you ready for that? Do you understand what a 30-second commercial is, or how to speak positively about yourself in a networking environment? How do you stand out from the crowd? What are the job market trends? And really take advantage of the supports available to you through the college or in the community. You can also look to YouTube or LinkedIn Learning to get some fantastic insights and career-related information. So embrace support. That's really important. Most important, I think, is remember you're not alone. Nobody goes through life without, ever experiencing change. Everything does not remain the same for most people. There's change. Change is a part of life. Without change, things would get pretty boring, actually. So when it happens to you, find ways to embrace it, see the positive side to the change you're in, and allow it to shape you in new and exciting ways. So talk with others. Get feedback on how you're doing. Be patient with yourself. Acknowledge that you don't have to go it alone. So that's it for me. I hope this webinar was helpful. Feel free again to reach out to me, to our team, if you have any questions or comments. We'd absolutely love to hear from you. Alumni@georgebrown.ca. Good luck and take care.